Nobody is coming to save you. Read that again inside your head and let it burn. There is no teacher waiting around the corner. There is no secret hand reaching down to pull you up. There is no lucky break with your name on it. The sooner you swallow this truth, the sooner you become dangerous. The world sold you a lie wrapped in a nice-sounding quote that if you just stay positive, doors will open. They won't. Doors don't open for people who just hope. Doors open for people who never give up. Doors break for the obsessed. And if you're sitting there right now with zero help, zero connections, and zero luck, congratulations. You've just been handed the most powerful starting position in the game. You just don't know it yet. Machiavelli understood something that soft minds refuse to accept. He wrote that fortune favors the man who depends on no one but himself, not the man who begs, not the man who waits, the man who moves while others hesitate. You see, most people are building their lives on borrowed foundations, a friend's introduction, a family name, a stroke of timing they didn't earn. And the moment that foundation cracks, they fall apart. But you who have nothing and no one, you are being forced to build on solid ground. Your own mind, your own hands, your own will. That is not a curse. That is a crowning. The universe disguised as suffering. Stop crying about what you don't have. The man with no safety net learns to fly differently. He doesn't glide. He builds his own wings while falling. Every empire that lasted was built by someone the world counted out. History doesn't remember the comfortable. It remembers the ones who had every reason to quit and never did. You are standing at the exact position where legends begin. Alone, hungry, overlooked. Good. Now let's turn that into something they'll never forget. Kill the need for approval. The most dangerous chain you wear is the one you can't see. It's not being poor. It's not being lonely. It's the desperate, pathetic need to be approved of by people who don't even approve of themselves. You want to know what keeps a man broke, invisible, and average for his entire life? It's not laziness. It's the addiction to clapping. The moment you shape your moves based on what others might think, you hand them the remote control to your life, and they will change the channel every single time. Machiavelli wrote that a man who tries to be good in all things will be ruined among so many who are not good. Read that slowly. He wasn't telling you to become evil. He was telling you to stop performing goodness for an audience that doesn't care. You smile when you want to scream. You stay quiet when you should speak. You shrink your dreams so the room stays comfortable. And for what? For people who will forget your name the moment you stop being useful to them. That is not being humble. That is self-destruction, wearing a polite mask. Here is the cold equation of power. The man who needs nothing from you controls everything. When you stop chasing approval, something scary happens. You become uncontrollable. No one can bribe you with praise. No one can bribe you with science. No one can steer you with guilt. You become a fixed point in a world full of people spinning in circles trying to be liked. Kill the need for approval, and you kill the one weakness every trick player in your life has been feeding on since the day you were born. You don't need their clapping. You need their respect. And respect is never given to those who beg for attention. It is taken by those who no longer care whether it comes at all. The art of moving in silence. Every time you announce your next move, you invite problems. Every time you share your plans with someone who hasn't earned the right to hear them, you hand bullets to a potential enemy. This is not being paranoid. This is seeing patterns. Machiavelli warned that people are so simple and so caught up in right now that the one who tricks will always find people willing to be tricked. And the first trick people will run on you is pretending they want you to win. They don't. They want to watch. They want to measure. They want to know exactly where you're headed so they can arrive there first or make sure you never get there at all. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the highest form of war strategy available to a man with no resources. When you move in silence, you become impossible to predict. When you become impossible to predict, you become impossible to stop. Think about it. The lion does not announce the hunt. The storm does not send a letter before it arrives. The most powerful forces in nature work without warning because surprise itself is a weapon. you should be no different. Let your results make the noise. Let your change be the announcement. Let them find out what you become, only after it's too late to stop you. The weak talk. The average explain. The powerful disappear and return changed. From this point forward, treat your goals like secret information. Your gym sessions, your late-night studying, your business plans, your money moves. None of it is public information. You owe explanations to no one. The world will adjust to your new reality once you've already built it. Stop broadcasting. Stop hinting. Stop looking for witnesses for your grind. The man who moves in silence arrives before anyone even knew he left. That is not just strategy. That is total power in its purest, quietest, most deadly form. Build the mind before the empire. You want an empire. You want wealth, influence, respect, and a life that makes ordinary men uncomfortable just looking at it. Good. But understand this before you chase a single dollar or shake a single hand. If the mind is weak, the empire will collapse every single time. History is full of men who built kingdoms on undisciplined minds and watched them burn to the ground. They got the money but couldn't handle the pressure. They got the power but fell apart under the loneliness. They reached the top and self-destructed because nobody told them the truth. The throne doesn't make the king. The mind does. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, and every morning he sat alone and wrestled with his own thoughts. He understood what most men never will. The battlefield outside means nothing if the battlefield inside is chaos. You cannot command others if you cannot command yourself. You cannot lead a revolution if your emotions hijack you every time someone disrespects you, doubts you, or walks away from you. Emotional reaction is being poor. Emotional control is power. That is not just words. That is how things work. So before you build anything external, build the internal structure first. Train yourself to sit with discomfort and not flinch. Train yourself to delay fun when every instinct begs for relief. Train yourself to think 3 moves ahead when everyone around you is reacting to the moment in front of them. Read when they scroll. Plan when they party. Sharpen when they sleep. The grind is not physical. The grind is not. A disciplined mind can rebuild from ashes. An undisciplined mind can lose everything overnight. You are not building a business first. You are not building a brand first. You are building a mind that nothing and no one can break. That is the foundation. Everything else is just decoration on top of it. Trust no process but your own. Everyone wants to sell you the blueprint, the 10-step formula, the morning routine of billionaires, the secret hack that changed everything. And you, hungry and desperate, eat it up like gospel. Stop. Machiavelli wrote that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more dangerous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in bringing in a new order of things. He wasn't talking about following someone else's map. He was talking about drawing your own. The moment you copy another man's strategy, you become a cheaper version of him. And the world never pays full price for a copy. Here is what the teachers and influencers will never tell you. Their blueprint worked because it was designed for their circumstances, their timing, their skills, their specific set of failures. You are not them. Your battlefield is different. Your wounds are different. Your weapons are different. So why would you fight your war with someone else's battle plan? That is not learning. That is giving up your brain. You didn't come this far alone, unsupported, overlooked, just to become a follower dressed in ambition. Trust your own pattern seeing. Trust your own pattern seeing. Trust the lessons your specific pain has taught you. Study everything, but obey nothing blindly. Read the books, but question the authors. Watch the successful, but take apart their context before you copy their moves. Your process will look strange to others. It should. Because it was built for a war, only you are fighting. The greatest strategists in history didn't succeed because they followed the rules. They succeeded because they understood the rules deeply enough to know exactly when to break them. Build your own system. Test it, improve it, burn what doesn't work, and double down on what does. You are not a student of another man's life. You are the builder of your own. And builders don't trace blueprints. They create them from nothing. Use pain as a blueprint. We've been betrayed. You've been abandoned. You've been laughed at by people who couldn't survive a single week inside your circumstances. And right now, somewhere in your chest, that pain still sits like a hot coal you can't put down. Good. Don't put it down. Most people treat pain like a disease, something to numb, avoid, or bury under distractions. But Machiavelli didn't build his thinking from comfort. He wrote The Prince after being imprisoned, hurt, and kicked out from everything he had ever known. He didn't break, he sharpened. And the work that came from that suffering changed the entire course of political thought for centuries. Pain didn't destroy him. Pain promoted him. Here is what dark psychology teaches you about suffering that no self-help book ever will. Pain is the only teacher that installs permanent lessons. Comfort teaches you nothing. Comfort makes you slow, trusting, and easy to predict. But pain, real, soul-deep, sleepless night pain, rewires your brain. It gives you pattern seeing that comfortable people will never develop. You start seeing betrayal before it arrives. You start reading faces instead of just hearing words. You start trusting behavior over promises because you've been burned by every pretty sentence a liar ever spoke. That is not damage. That is an upgrade the universe forced upon you without your permission. Every rejection taught you where not to spend your energy. Every failure showed you which foundation was weak. Every person who walked away showed exactly how much you were relying on someone other than yourself. Stop calling these moments tragedies. Start calling them intelligence reports. The man who has suffered and studied his suffering becomes the most dangerous man in any room, not because he is angry, but because he is aware. He has been to the bottom and mapped every inch of it. And a man who knows the bottom can never be threatened with the fall. Your pain is not your story. Your pain is your strategy. Use every scar as a blueprint and build something so powerful that the people who broke you will one day wish they hadn't. Master the game they don't teach you. There is a game being played all around you every single day. And nobody taught you the rules. Not your school, not your parents, not your friends. They taught you to work hard, be honest, and wait your turn. And while you were waiting, someone with half your talent but twice your awareness walked right past you and took everything you deserved. That is not unfairness. That is ignorance. And in the game of power, ignorance is the most expensive thing you can carry. Machiavelli understood that the world does not work on fairness. It works on leverage. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every relationship is an exchange. Every room you enter has a rank. And if you don't know where you stand in it, you're standing at the bottom. This is not being negative. This is the operating system of human nature that polite society pretends doesn't exist. People don't give you opportunities because you're talented. They give you opportunities because you've positioned yourself where saying no to you costs more than saying yes. That is leverage. That is the game. Start studying people the way a surgeon studies the body. Watch what they do, not what they say. Track where their money goes, not where their mouth points. Learn to read silence because silence shows more than words ever will. The man who masters human nature doesn't need connections because he can create them from thin air. He walks into a room with nothing and leaves with everything because he understood the one thing nobody else bothered to learn. What people actually want and what they're terrified of losing. Influence is not manipulation. Influence is intelligence applied socially, and the man with no network, no family name, and no lucky break has only one path to power. He must become so sharp at reading the game that the game itself starts adjusting to him. Stop playing fair in a world that never was. Start playing smart. That is not corruption. That is evolution. Become the man they can't ignore. You've built the mind. You've mastered silence. You've studied the game. Now it's time to become so undeniably valuable that the world has no choice but to acknowledge you. Not because you asked, not because you asked, but because ignoring you becomes more costly than recognizing you. That is the shift. That is where defense becomes offense. Machiavelli wrote that the one who becomes prince through his own abilities and resources, though he has difficulty gaining power, finds it easy to keep. Read that with your entire being. The man who builds himself without favors doesn't just arrive, he stays, because no one can take away what no one gave you. Here is where most men fail. They wait to be discovered. They polish their potential and pray someone notices. But potential is invisible. Results are blinding. Nobody cares what you could become. They care what you've already done. So stop preparing endlessly and start producing relentlessly. Build something they can see. Write something they can read. Create something they can't copy. The market doesn't care about your story until your output forces them to ask for it. Being good at what you do is the loudest introduction a man with no connections will ever have. It walks into rooms before you do and stays long after you've left. Become the man who delivers when everyone else just talks. Become the man whose work ethic makes comfortable people deeply uncomfortable. Become the man who shows up so consistently that your presence becomes a law of nature. People stop questioning. You don't need a handshake from someone important. You need a body of work that makes important people come find you. Stop chasing doors. Become the man doors chase. Stop asking for seats at tables. Build your own table so impressive that people abandon their chairs just to come sit at yours. You were never meant to fit into their world. You were meant to build one they couldn't look away from. That is not arrogance. That is the cold, calculated result of a man who turned nothing into something undeniable. The lonely throne. Now let me tell you the part no one puts in the highlight reel, the part they crop out of the success photo. The throne you are building. The one forged from discipline, silence, pain, and relentless execution. That throne is lonely. And not the poetic kind of lonely they romanticize in movies. The real kind. The kind where your phone is silent on the nights you need someone most. The kind where the people you grew up with start looking at you like a stranger because your growth offended their stagnation. The kind where you win, and there is no one in the room who truly understands what it cost you to get there. Machiavelli himself died in poverty and exile, surrounded by none of the powerful men he once advised. Marcus Aurelius wrote his deepest philosophy alone in a military tent while leading wars. Nobody thanked him for. History's most powerful minds understood something that weak men refuse to accept. The price of being your own master is being alone. And that price is not optional. It is required. The higher you climb on your own terms, the thinner the air gets. Fewer people can breathe where you're going. And you will be tempted, deeply tempted, to climb back down just to feel the warmth of company again. Don't. This is where most men break, not at the bottom. At the top. They build the empire and then destroy it because they couldn't sit with the silence that came after the war. Do not be that man. The Stoics taught that a man who is at peace with his own company can never be imprisoned by any circumstance. Loneliness is not your enemy. It is the final gatekeeper standing between you and everything you've been bleeding for. Sit with it, master it, let it sharpen you one last time. Because the man who conquers being alone conquers the last weakness anyone could ever use against him. The throne was never meant to be crowded. It was meant to be yours, alone, unshaken, untouchable. Your empire starts now. You've heard every word. You've felt every sentence land somewhere deep inside the part of you that already knew this truth but needed someone to say it out loud. So here it is one final time with no filter and no mercy. You don't need support. You are the support. You don't need connections. You are the connection worth having. You don't need luck. Luck is what happens when a prepared mind meets a world that underestimated it. Everything you need to dominate is already inside you, waiting for the moment you stop hesitating and start doing like a man who has already accepted that failure is not an option. Because going back to the old version of yourself is a fate worse than any loss. Machiavelli wrote his masterpiece in exile. The Stoics carved their philosophy inside chaos. Every empire that ever shook the earth was built by someone who had nothing but an unbreakable decision to become more than what the world assigned them. That someone is you. Not tomorrow, not next month, right now. This is your declaration of war against being average, against comfort, against every voice that told you to settle. You are not settling, you are rising, cold.